Well, Gwyneth Paltrow has struck again. That's right, Joe Rogan, the semi-literate man's answer to Goop, is now on record saying that he will not get a COVID-19 vaccine because he's healthy. This happened on his podcast when his guest, actor James Neighbors, asked if Rogan was going to get the vaccine.
You taking that vaccine?
No.
Yeah.
No, I would if I felt like I needed it. But I just feel like if you maintain your health, and I think for some people it's important. I think for some people it's good.
Are they gonna make people take it in order to go overseas?
I'm worried about that. I don't like that.
I don't like needles. I
want to know how people fare over X amount of months. Like, what happens in 6 months after the vaccine? How long does it last for? Do you need it again next year?
To paraphrase a biologist friend of mine, I'm not surprised at all, but I am extremely disgusted. I'm not surprised because Joe Rogan is a moron. This isn't a controversial take because Rogan himself freely admits that he's an idiot. TV Tropes calls this lampshade hanging. The idea being that if you have something in your film or play that is obviously stupid and would draw the audience out of their willing suspension of disbelief, you can just shine a spotlight on it and then move on. It's self-deprecating, it gets the audience to laugh along with you, and you don't really have to make any big changes to your plot. For instance, in the seminal Samuel L. Jackson film Snakes on a Plane, Jackson tells his superiors about the antagonist's plan to fill an airplane with deadly snakes, to which his superiors reply, "What kind of insane plan is that?" Like, wink, wink, don't worry. We know the plot of this movie is completely nonsensical. So now that we've pointed that out, let's just move on and enjoy the venomous snakes murdering everyone. That kind of lampshade hanging can be delightful if you're in the mood to just turn off your brain and watch a stupid movie about a bad guy who fills a commercial airliner with venomous snakes. It can be obnoxious in a work of art that is attempting to be serious. Many years ago, I read Dave Eggers' book, A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius, and I was extremely annoyed by how often the writer seems to try to continually attempt to offset criticism by having the narrator of the book say things like, "I know what I'm saying is a cliche." That's not a direct quote. I haven't read it in years, but it was annoying. The problem is that you're calling attention to the bad writing to score cheap points instead of just making the writing better. Like I, Robot is another example. It's meant to be brainy science fiction, but in order to move the plot forward, they need to have a character, to quote TV Tropes, comment on the messed up building design that forces the characters to walk out over an incredible drop across very thin walkways without safety rails in order to access the only service terminal to a giant computer brain. Instead of having a character say, "Wow, that's messed up," maybe rewrite your plot so that it fucking makes sense. Just saying. Which brings me back to Joe Rogan. Rogan has hung a lampshade on his idiocy, which he thinks saves him from any criticism. You can't say, "I'm an idiot," because I already said I was an idiot. And by saying I know I'm an idiot, doesn't that actually make me kind of smart? You know, like in a Shakespearean way, like the fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool, that kind of thing. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Hanging that lampshade is way easier than trying to not be an idiot, like educating yourself and being responsible for what you're saying on your huge platform. After all, Rogan is easily worth many millions of dollars. Spotify just gave him this huge licensing deal worth more than $100 million. His podcast is the most popular podcast in the world, gets like 200 million downloads a month. Intellectually speaking, he does the absolute least work he can do. And for that, he is handsomely rewarded. Why bother to do the work to become more well-informed and actually care about the message you're putting out to millions of people when you can just hang a lampshade on your stupidity and cash that check. And it's a real shame because when Rogan started getting popular, there was this hope among skeptics that he would be a force for good because he had a lot of people on to correct his idiocy. Like, he immediately started spreading bullshit, like claiming that humans never landed on the moon, but he had Phil, the bad astronomer, Plate on to debate him. But Phil quickly found out that Rogan was aggressively ignorant, full of logical fallacies, and an inveterate gish galloper. He just came out with, but what about, but what about, but what about? And Phil could not possibly keep up. That's just one example, but there are plenty more. Rogan has used his massive platform to spread lies about 9/11. He's had alt-right goobers like Ben Shapiro and Alex Jones on. Jones, if you'll recall, claims that the massacre of children at Sandy Hook never actually happened, and he's harassed the parents of those murdered children. And he still gets to go on Rogan's show to say whatever he wants with very little pushback on anything but the most jaw-dropping claims. In fact, Rogan had Jones on his show this past October to talk in part about how the coming COVID-19 vaccines would be dangerous. Jones said that Bill Gates went on CNN and the host said 80% of those taking your vaccine trial are very sick and some are dying. And Bill Gates just said, well, that's the way it is. When people objected to that quote, as well as many others that Alex Jones said on the show, like Dianne Feinstein is a Chinese asset, Joe Biden uses Ukraine as a money laundering operation, Buzz Aldrin endorsed Donald Trump and thinks aliens built the pyramids, like none of those things are true. Rogan's only extremely pathetic response was to go on Instagram and post a clip of what Bill Gates actually said and claimed that that's what Alex Jones said when it was not. 80% of people in the vaccines did not, in fact, get very sick, and none of them, in fact, died. Bill Gates didn't just shrug his shoulders. He pointed out that it's normal for a vaccine to have slight side effects in a lot of people, and that the FDA would work to ensure that they are safe. Spotify, for their part, defended Rogan's right to have Alex Jones on to spout this anti-vaccine bullshit. The result of being rewarded for spreading bullshit? An escalation in bullshit. Because this month, Rogan stated emphatically that he would not get the vaccine because he's healthy. Rogan takes and promotes and profits from dietary supplements, which are not actually necessary to be healthy and which have nothing to do with COVID-19. No supplement will prevent you from contracting or passing along a virus. And if they are promising that, then they're probably doing some illegal shit, and the FDA would love to hear about it. Does being healthy protect you from the worst effects of viruses like COVID-19? Yeah, probably. The fewer comorbidities you have, the better your chances of surviving. But as I've talked about many times before, doctors still don't know what the long-term effects are for people who survive an infection. Even pro athletes have reported lingering heart and lung issues after recovering from COVID-19. Hell, even pro athletes in the very sport that Rogan participates in have had these issues. A 26-year-old UFC fighter had to drop out of 2 different matches in the past 2 months because of a COVID infection that he contracted in early December. His trainer described how he has been in and out of hospitals, and he literally thought he was going to die. Being healthy is not a guarantee that COVID-19 won't severely affect you. But more than that, just being healthy is not going to help at all when it comes to knowingly or unknowingly passing this virus on to other people. You might be healthy, but the majority of the United States, not healthy. They're either very old or very young. They have diabetes, they have heart conditions, and just telling them, well, get healthy isn't helpful. Many of these people can't just rewind the clock. And for those who can theoretically get healthier, they can't just do that immediately. It takes time and energy. They can't just start taking Dr. Rogan's pure snake oil and magically lose their comorbidities. And if you give a shit about people at all, you want to protect them, regardless of whether they can or cannot improve their physical health. It's exactly the same as what I've said in previous years when it comes to vaccinating against influenza every year or whooping cough every couple of years. Yes, it will help you by making you less likely to get an extremely annoying, sometimes very scary, and sometimes deadly illness. And if you do get that illness, then it's less likely to be serious. But the real benefit of getting these vaccines is literally saving the lives of the people around you. We need herd immunity for all of these things to get the full benefit of having a vaccine for them. And we won't be able to do that when the people with the largest platforms are spreading stupid bullshit like, you don't need to get vaccinated if you're healthy. I don't expect this to change Joe Rogan's mind because, by saying this dumb bullshit on his platform, he only becomes more likely to defend it and to dig his heels in when he's criticized instead of taking a step back and admitting where he went wrong. But maybe someone else with a smaller but still significant platform will take note before they make the same mistake. Get vaccinated when you can. Encourage the people around you to get vaccinated. It's extremely important. It's the only way that we can get out of the situation that we've managed to get ourselves into.